There's a really nice word that I like with people with aphasia after their stroke or other brain injury. It's like there's a fog lifted, and that fog could be, a couple of months or a couple of years. You never know. But once your fog is lifted, you realise that, wow, this is going to be my new life.
Hi, and welcome everybody, and we hope you enjoy this podcast called On the Tip of My Tongue. Now, I'm Rob Edwards.
And I'm Jonathan Hirons.
And this podcast is a follow-up to a film which Jonathan made about aphasia. So, what is aphasia? Well, it's a condition caused by some kind of injury to the brain, which is often, could be a stroke, or could be just falling off a bike. And it affects your ability to use language in all its forms. Speaking, writing, reading, sending texts, whatever. 350,000 people in the UK suffer from a debilitating condition called aphasia. Fewer than half this number suffer from Parkinson's, and yet most people have heard of Parkinson's, whilst almost nobody has heard of aphasia.
Let me introduce you to a friend of the show who's got a fantastic podcast.
Hi, I'm Talia Lazarus, and in 2021 I was relearning how to walk, and in 22 I was learning how to run 21 kilometres. So join me on I Got Back Up as I share powerful life stories. Unexpected challenges and moments can defeat us, but the human spirit possesses an immense strength that allows us to rise above the darkest moments, rebuilding our lives in extraordinary ways.
You can listen to Talia's podcast on all the usual channels.
You're listening to On the Tip of My Tongue, a podcast dedicated to raising awareness about aphasia. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding it helpful, please subscribe to it by clicking on the Support the Show link in the description. Thank you.
My name is Colin Lyle. I'm the founder for Say Aphasia charity, and I've been doing this for about 8 years now.
Well, thanks, Colin. Thanks for coming on the Tip of My Tongue podcast. So, Colin, how did you get aphasia? What's your story?
I had a stroke about 11 years ago. I was very stressed. The company that I used to do, it was kind of mechanical electrical engineers in London. I'm in Brighton. I used to commute every day from 6 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock in the evening. And what happened to me, I had a whole and heart burst. I think stress, to de-stress, is to have alcohol, and that's what happens. So I had a massive stroke in the hospital. I could sort of say yes and no and lots of swear words. My intelligence was intact, but I couldn't get any words right. And in the hospital, I didn't know I had a stroke, and I was still thinking about the company, and I was just sort of thinking that, a couple of weeks I'm going to be fine again. And it took a long time to realise that I can't. Yeah.
So what happened with your work? Did it stop or for a bit, or what?
The company's still running. There was about 60 people in the office. I think it's quite small now. It's only about 30, but it's still a big company. In fact, my two sons are still part of it. Right. And I think when I got back home, I had speech and language therapy sort of instantly, which is pretty good. And I had my speech and language therapy was in my house every 2 days for an hour, 1-to-1, try to get my words. That was about 4 months. Then I had another speech and language therapy in the hospital again for about another 2 or 3 months. So I've realised that I was just very, very lucky because, there's a lot of people I know in aphasia, don't get speech and language therapy at all. And I think so the company I thought it'd be good to go to the office and say hello. I had to remember how it works in terms of getting a train, where it is, completely confused. My speech is not great, but I thought I was thinking that I can be, I'll go there for 2 or 3 hours just to see anything that I could do. And I just thought that, one day I will be sort of back to normal. It just takes a long time. My words was kind of getting better, but I can't read and can't write still anymore. So I did that for about 6 months and then realised that no, it's not going to happen. And they're lovely, lovely people, and they like to say hello, but I think most people knew that I just can't do it.
What sort of work did you do at the company?
We were a consultant for big buildings, and we do all of the mechanical, electrical, lifts, acoustics, and we have conversations with the client and the architects to work out how we want to do it. And then when we decide how we want to do it, then we get a builder to build it. Mm-hmm. And we're used to do big office blocks. One of my first jobs 30 years ago, must be already 40 years ago, was Lombard Street. Used to be.
I used to work there.
Barclays Bank.
Yeah.
So I used to do that. But for our company, we had the clients, people like Blackstone, big American company, doing lots of buildings in London. So and it's good. It's very good.
So you spent a lot of time talking to people in your job.
Absolutely. No, I was a director. I have to have conversations with the clients. You have to be polite, and I was just very good to get the right phrase about what we're trying to do. You can have one conversation with the architect, or the client, which is very kind of different to the conversations that you might have to have with the construction companies.
Right.
So it's just, I did used to like it. It's always stressful, but maybe I just, you never really know when you've had a stroke like that. You always think about stress. I always think that stress, that's the part of the job, but I think that's the way these days, and that's why there's a lifestyle, and that's where there seems to be more people who are having strokes, but also people having a stroke quite young as well.
Yes. Yeah, this is what we're learning. I've been learning over the few years I've been doing this. Is that, yes, it's not age or people start, the people with all sorts of problems at all sorts of ages. And stress, you're right. I spoke to Emma Rich on Friday, and she said exactly the same thing. She had a very stressful job, and she blacked out, so people get in different ways, but we end up in the same place. So how did you get from doing that to running this charity?
Well, I think it takes a long time to. I reckon it took about a year to realise what aphasia is. And I'm pretty sure the speech and language therapy would tell me that I've got aphasia, but I didn't realise what it was. But when I realised I've got aphasia, I reckon about a year. There's a really nice word that I like with people with aphasia after their stroke or either a brain injury. It's like there's a fog lifted. And that fog could be, a couple of months or a couple of years, you never know. But once your fog is lifted, you realise that, wow, this is going to be my new life. And I think part of my fog was I had, after my stroke, I had seizures, and some were quite mild and some quite severe. And I had seizures, at least seizures for about 2 years. So that's roughly every 6 weeks to get the right, drug to stop. I was still part of the company, had Bupa or whatever it is, the company that we had. And so whenever I had seizures, I'd go back to this consultant and say, look, it's not quite right for me. I had another one, and it took a long time. But after 2 years and it stopped, I could drive again. I got the right medicine where I'm always very tired, but some of the medicine was just too tired. And it's almost like, the fog is lifted, and now I kind of decide what I need to do. And that's when I used to go to London sometimes because there was a different charity called Connect. So I used to go to their place of a big office, and they had a group every Wednesday and Friday or whatever. I used to go to that to say hello. And then I was part of every couple of months they do a newsletter. So I used to go to the office to talk about how we want to do the newsletter, just to making sure that, you know, Brighton is going to be sort of part of it. So that was very good. And then I just decided to do my own charity for Say Aphasia. So from 11 years ago, and then it was kind of about 8 years ago when I decided to do this charity.
Starting in Brighton, was it?
And it's in Brighton, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. It took a long time because obviously, you know, I still can't do reading and writing skills, but I had to do my own charity.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky. I had my voice recognition. So if I wanted to do some words about what my charity is, it's voice recognition who did it. But this is kind of 8 years ago, so it wasn't easy because
it wasn't that good, was it then?
If it's not the right phrase, but I know it's not quite right, but I don't know why. So it's sort of, you know, I have to sort of start again. So it took a long time to do the charity.
I know. Well, and I've done the paperwork for starting a charity, and it's a nightmare, even if you don't have anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
So you did well to do that. Did you have some help? Was it just you, or?
No, I had obviously doing a proper charity. I had 4 trustees, but they were just sort of families and friends. It was almost like if there's anything I need, then you know they'll let me do something for me. But I didn't. I did it my own self because they're all kind of busy. They had their own company and they were always sort of busy anyway. So I did it myself.
Right. So you started off in Brighton. When did you realise that you could probably do that somewhere? Because you now have more Say Aphasia groups, don't you? Yeah. So how does that start? How did you start with that?
When I first started the charity, I realised, you know, you got, you know, Google and the Stroke Association and all that sort of stuff to realise that there's 350,000 people who's got people with aphasia. So my mission was to have more groups and get aware about what aphasia is.
Right.
So we had the first group in Hove. You know, I knew some of the speech and language therapy. One of them, Kirsty, she was amazing when she realised I was going to be sort of part of it. They were thrilled. And then another speech and language therapy who used to be in the hospital in Chichester. Told us that, you know, he had a look at the venues for Chichester and it just kind of, it's basically how it works. We decided to have a group in Crawley, and I think from just before the lockdown, I think the lockdown must be about 5 or 6 years now. Just before the lockdown, we had about 6 groups in Sussex and another group in the north in Skipton. And it's only because we know these people because before the lockdown, we used to go to Stroke Association conference and we'll have conversation with these people. You know, there's always people with aphasia. So I can have those sort of conversations when, you know, so we're kind of thinking about having a group. So yeah, I think just before lockdown, it must be probably about 8 or 9 groups. And then we had lockdown. We decided to do Zoom because everybody was bored and couldn't go out, sort of thing. So we just do that every week. We had about 40 people doing Zoom. And when we're having the sort of conversations that we have in Zoom, there was a couple of people that, you know, they were thinking about, you know, sort of doing it for when the lockdown is finished. So we had the group we had Darlington, which is Pete that we know. And that group.
I'm from London as well, but I moved down to East Devon. So my closest place was Exeter. So I met Barbara and it started there. But then she came to you, didn't you? You joined that, didn't you?
Yeah, they decided to emerge for Say Aphasia. They were living with aphasia.
Living with aphasia,
yeah. Brilliant. And I think they just have conversations quite a lot. You know, they wanted to know what we do, how it works. You know, could we just merge and do it together?
Right.
And we did. I'm really pleased that it's good.
You're listening to On the Tip of My Tongue, a podcast dedicated to raising awareness about aphasia. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding it helpful, please subscribe to it by clicking on the Support the Show link in the description. Thank you.
I think after the lockdown, we decided to do a different way. We had different trustees. So all of my sort of family and friends are gone, and we had people who know what I'm looking for. One of is Barbara, who's part of the group in Exeter. Yeah. So that's been good. And the other thing that we sort of decided to do is that all of the groups, and now we have about 18 groups now, to making sure that all of the peer leaders are people with aphasia. And that's quite successful. And, there's a lot of people with aphasia. There's a lot of things they can't do. So we have to make sure that we have volunteers as well.
Who don't have aphasia.
Yeah.
So the peer leaders, I've met the lady, Nikki in Exeter, and I've just spoken to Emma. So what's their role sort of day to day? What do they do? Do they run it for you?
Yeah, it's basically the way that I sort of say it is that we don't have an agenda, and people just can just turn up, and it's free, and it's almost like you've got a new friend who's got the same brain injury. And the peer leaders, if you've got a new member, the peer leaders just welcome you, have a chat, have a cup of tea, cup of coffee. There's no rush to get the right words. If they're quite severe, they're quite happy to have their family or carers to go to the group as well.
Right.
And it's nice to just talk about life. And you either there's lots of things that they need. Some people had a stroke quite recently, and they still want to practice their words. A lot of people just wants to. You've got a new friend, and you go to the group and talk about life.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about sports or holidays or whatever, and doesn't matter if it's not quite right. And if they can't get a whole sentence, you've got gestures. You've got I don't know, maps or there's always a way to work out what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a very chilled environment, because when you sort of go back home, it's different. And you can't have those sort of conversations.
It's what strikes me though, because your groups are what, a few dozen are they? How big are the groups generally?
The group in Hove, that was first group, there's probably 25 to 30 people with aphasia.
Right.
And it's not just aphasia, it's primary progressive aphasia. Sometimes there are people with aphasia, dysarthria, praxia. All of those people are quite welcome to go to the group, because there's the same sort of brain injury who just can't get the right words.
It strikes me that, however, that the number of people we're talking about is tiny compared to the number of people who actually got aphasia.
Yeah.
You've got 350,000 people who've got aphasia. I don't know how many groups there are around the country, not just yours, but I still don't think they really touch the sides in terms of people who actually got aphasia.
Oh, absolutely. No, I reckon we've got around about 300 members that we have for the 18 groups.
Right.
So you're quite right.
No, it's not even that, is it? No, you can't do the numbers, but tiny number.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things I'm doing, I know you are anyway, is trying to get people to understand what this is, because we're all slightly different, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've all got a different version of it. Yeah. Some people obviously very bad, and some people manage to get by reasonably well. My reading and writing's not terribly good. It's better than it used to be. I couldn't do it at all to begin with. But you find you're up against a bit of a brick wall sometimes, because you're telling people about it and they're looking at you and they think, oh, yeah, okay. And it doesn't really go in a lot of cases. They don't. And I mean, I as a group, I play football. They know I've had the stroke and all that, and I've told them what my problems are. But even now they'll say, What's that you've got? They think it's something else.
It's not easy to work out what's going on for our brain. Yeah, so there are part of the Aphasia Alliance.
Right.
It's got lots of companies and groups in that for the Aphasia Alliance. Right. So you've got people like the Tavistock.
Tavistock, yeah. I know them, yeah.
And other sort of charities as well. And it's nice to get feedback about what they all do. And anything we can sort of do together to get aware about it and all that sort of stuff. But like you say, it's not easy, isn't it? You're the same with your friends, going to the football, trying to tell them what it is, and they'll say, "Well, your words are right." So I think it's just now.
What's wrong with you? Yes, well, that's a thing that we have to live with, I suppose, in many ways. If you've got an idea of why there isn't. Like the Stroke Association, why isn't there an Aphasia Association, one big of charity? The alliance is a number of people put together, isn't it? But you're not actually
doing it together.
Doing it together, no.
Well, I suppose they're all different companies, different, in terms of getting there. You're thinking about, to sort of do it together.
Yeah,
it's not easy. There's the strokes. People have strokes. It's not just the Stroke Association, big companies. There's also the different strokes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We might have alliance. They have conversation with them together, but trying to do something together.
Yeah,
it
doesn't happen. No, I don't know why that is. Maybe because it's aphasia, and it's one of those things that people can't even. People who know what it's all about can't get their heads around the sort of, with strokes, they can say, "Oh, you've had a stroke." It's a medical thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas with aphasia, it's something in your head and it's all different and so on and so forth. We use Parkinson's as an example. Poor old Parkinson's. We're always having a go at them. But you know what Parkinson's is because they've got something physically wrong with them. But with aphasia, you and I, nobody notices that there's anything wrong with us.
I think when you've got a dry brain injury where you can't get any words, particularly with quite severe aphasia, there's families, friends in that area. They don't know that the internals are intact.
Still,
I've got a big family, and when I got back in the hospital, going back to my house, I thought I was always smiling, and I was sort of thumbs up. I'm all right. My intelligence is intact. I just can't speak. But even like thumbs up and smiling, they're kind of thinking, are you really,
he's
intelligent
gone.
or not?
We've lost you.
Yeah.
So what about the future then? Tell me about what have you got? Have you got any big plans to extend?
Yes, I think
that you can tell me about.
Well, of course, yeah. Yeah, we reckon for another 5 years to 10 years, we're trying to get more groups.
Right.
And we're talking about 40 groups. And we've got 18 at the moment. But also we have to be very careful. You can't just get another group. We have to make sure that all the things that we need to do, we do have all of the peer leaders every month. We're having a meeting about what we're doing, how's it going with the volunteers, how's it going with the members, and when it's bigger and bigger and bigger, we just need to make sure we've got the right people, because we've only got 2 or 3 people who runs the whole empire.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that the people who are the right person for us.
Right.
When it's more people, that we can still have those sort of conversations.
It'll probably get harder as you get bigger, won't it? Do you think?
Yes, we might have to have, like we had Emma that you had, you saw. Maybe we have to have 2 or 3 Emmas, so we can
regional or something.
So, but it's not going to be. We're ready when we've got the right people, and I think we're also making sure that we'll keep going in terms of money. It's all about grants, fundraising, and all that sort of stuff.
Tell me about it.
So we're doing a grant or just making sure that when we are talking about 30, 40 groups, that we've got the money to do it,
On the funding bids, or do you get people in to help you with the bids, or?
When I first started, I used to do myself, my own grants and fundraising stuff. Was very good. I wasn't very good, basically, but I managed to get a couple of grants that I did, so it was good. Then we've got Lauren, who's my daughter. He's part-time for Say Aphasia. She started doing grants. She's just so much better. So actually very good. And then sometimes some of the trustees can get a funding company to do it for us.
Right. Yeah.
So we've been doing that quite recently as well.
Okay.
So it is kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Things that I just can't do anymore. Well, I wasn't very good anyway, but we've got different avenues now.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Well, as you get bigger, you'll probably attract people to help you as well, I would have thought.
We got to next year, we got a couple of good big grants. We had a good grant, a funding one this year, which was very successful.
Right.
And I think we have some more next year, so hopefully it's going to be okay. And then we do fundraising. For about 5 years now, we do the half marathon in trying to get to 50 runners. It's not easy.
No.
But it was, it's been very successul. So
you've got a decent website as well now.
Lauren is very good. She got all those the website and all these things that we need to do. And the website has been very successful.
Do you have any connections outside the UK?
I'm part. Well, there is the Association of International Aphasia.
Right.
I'm part of the board member, which is quite recently. We have roughly 50 countries who are part of this group. So I'm part of that as well.
Right.
And we have one of our Say Aphasia ambassadors, Hanka, who any sort of conference that in different countries. She runs that, where she did one a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
It seems to be quite successful. So yeah. And again, it's all kind of Zoom, having conversations.
Sure.
Different countries. It's not easy because a lot of people can't do English.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Hanka can do is that her job before her stroke, he was a teacher with 3 or 4 different different countries. And different. So we're part of that as well. I'm part of. So I know there's some great research for people with aphasia that City University and UCL do in London. So I do part of those.
Do you know Suzanne Beek?
I know Suzanne Beach.
Yeah. Well, she's been on our show already. Well, she talks about, because her thing is about conversations, isn't it? That's her.
Yeah, right.
That's her thing.
Yeah.
So we've had her on. I might have her back actually. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, we plod on really. I find sometimes you think, well, I think I said at the beginning, sometimes you think, well, you hit a bit of a brick wall, but we just carry on really. It's the only thing you can do, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, I've got aphasia. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week,
Yeah, that's right.
And my charity is like that. I'm awake. I'm aphasia.
Is that what you do?
Charity, yeah. So I'll do it, every day. I've been trying to work out what I can do in terms of hobbies, because before my stroke, I used to do desert runs. Marathon Basaba twice, and one other company was Racing the Planet. I was always fit, but recently I had 2 hip replacements.
Oh my God!
I am actually doing the half marathon next year.
All right.
Hopefully,
okay. I'll get fit for that then.
I'll have to I'll be very slow, and I might even just walk. But
you won't be wearing a big hat or a head or something like that. Or a chicken. Yeah.
No, it's more not at all.
Well, it's fascinating always to talk to anybody, but particularly to you. You're a bit of a whiz, really, on all this. You don't stop, do you?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I think I would have been quite bored. I think if I didn't have that, I had to do something.
Well, my work stopped the minute I had the stroke, really.
Yeah.
And so, that's something that I have filled it with this, I have to say.
I think the other thing is that, again, going back to my fog, I was so stressed. It took about 2 years to unstress. Now I don't get stressed at all.
No.
And if we are getting, when we're getting to 40 groups and all that sort of stuff, and I'm going to get stressed again, I'm just going to stop. De-stress is a lovely way to be.
Just one thing before we leave. I was interested to see that you had quite a lot of speech and language therapy over. I only had 6 weeks. It took me just over a month to get someone, and then I'd had 6 weeks. And you said some people don't have it at all. Is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
I've had people who, it'll take a year to get to and to wait the speech and language therapy.
Really?
And it's always like, well, it's too
late, almost. You've got to be quick, haven't you?
Yeah.
First 3 months, apparently.
It's frustrating.
Even more frustrating, you haven't had any help at all in that sense.
I think in different counties, some of the speech and language therapy is just people with aphasia. Some people have got with not just people with aphasia, but other people who's got a brain injury. It could be children as well.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me, actually. I mean, they were good when they arrived, but it took a bit longer. We pushed it a bit to get it, but it's quite shocking, actually, that people don't get any at all or very little. That's not good at all, is it? Well, thank you very much, Colin. It's been really interesting. More power to your elbow, as they say.
One day I'll have to. I might have to retire one day.
Pack it in.
But you say that, but when you, it's almost like I'm still got aphasia.
So you just carry on. You'll find another way of joining in, one way and another. Well, thank you, Colin. Thank you for. It's been really interesting, and as I say, keep going. It's great to see you. Well done. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this On the Tip of My Tongue podcast. We hope you found it helpful and informative. Now, if you want more help and information about strokes and aphasia, please go to stroke.org.uk, Say Aphasia, that's SAY, aphasia, all one word, .org, or the aphasia page of nhs.uk. You're listening to On the Tip of My Tongue, a podcast dedicated to raising awareness about aphasia. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding it helpful, please subscribe to it by clicking on the Support the Show link in the description. Thank you. This has been a Buffalo Lounge production. Please follow Buffalo Lounge on all the socials.